All right, I think we're live. So welcome around to another Maran Motoring live stream here on the Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great week here so far. Thanks for stopping by for this midweek live stream. So like all these midweek ones, we're going to go for 1 hour or so. We've recently been going more like an hour and a half, but we'll try and keep it to an hour. I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. There's a link to join and become a member as well if you'd like. And so I see we have Lancelot, Theodore, and Vishal, and Nicholas here so far. So I'm a little bit more on time than usual. So I'm sure people will wander in as we go through the few minutes here. But Lancelot says, good evening, everyone. My spots so far this week are a blacked out CT4V, a black S197 GT500, a gray Mitsubishi Diamante, that's a rare one, and a black AMG C63 Coupe. I also saw a tan Mercedes SL convertible, similar to the one that Bobby Ewing drove in the Dallas TV show. Nice, very nice spots. Yeah, always good to see all those cars. And as far as the Dallas TV show, I've never actually seen that one. But I think is that the one that has Jordana Brewster in it from Fast and Furious? Wouldn't mind just supporting her work because I've never seen her in anything other than Fast and Furious. But very cool. And Theodore says, just saw a black Dodge Viper GTS and it sounds amazing. Yeah, those things are always awesome to hear, that V10, any of them, any generation, they're all fantastic sounding. That's a very cool spot. Congrats. And Vishal says, good evening, all. My spots so far are a McLaren 570S and a 911 Targa in my neighborhood. Very nice. And also an Escalade V was parked a few spaces away from me at the gym today. And the startup of it's insane being closer to it. Who would have thought Escalade would sound like that? Yeah, it is definitely a wake the neighborhood cold start in the Escalade V. And yeah, it's really funny with that car. I mean, I actually wish that they had a quiet start mode. There is a stealth mode for the exhaust once you're up and running, but you can't start it in that mode from my understanding. So that's the only thing about that thing is you have to be a very extroverted personality all the time, even whenever you're leaving bright and early in the morning there. But it's awesome nonetheless. And very nice spots there. Nicholas is saying hello. And Jay, thanks so much for being a member for 25 months now. He says, hey, Matt, great to chime in. Found myself looking at GR Corollas on the web today. Watched your weekly vid of the 2023 and can't say I'm not intrigued. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've heard all of my glowing praise for the GR Corolla. So I won't reiterate all of that. And, I also just did my week with the 25 here. And that was, really great too, with the little enhancements we get for 2025. And, yeah, it's not for everyone. If you are really into the modding scene, it sounds like there's not a lot of bandwidth to go big power on those. The rear diff overheats. There are a few drawbacks for sure. Decepticon's already ready with his drinks as we're cracking open the GR Corolla topic nice and early here. I appreciate you stopping by, Decepticon. But yeah, it comes down to how many mods you want to do. If you don't need a mod, or you're happy and you just want a car that's good out of the box without needing to fix it as soon as you buy it, I think that's what I love about GR Corolla is it's good out of the box. WRX seems like it's great once you've done a bunch of mods. I still haven't driven a modded one of the new generation, but everyone really likes those better because there's a higher, amount of possibilities as far as the power goes. But I don't want to have to buy a car that's already really expensive and then put a bunch of money into it just so that I like it. WRX is fine, but if we're talking stock for stock, GR Corolla is definitely the way to go in my mind. It's the spiritual successor to the STI. And let me know if you have any other questions about it, Jay. And hopefully the videos have been helpful and hope you're doing well too. And let me see. Kevin also, thanks for stopping by. And Nicholas says, thanks for doing these live streams, Matt. I really look forward to them. I'm glad you enjoy them. Thanks so much for, hanging out here twice a week and watching and commenting and all that. It's like I said, it's always so much fun for me too. That's why I'm happy that we're able to add this second one in. And it seems like, most of you really enjoy that as well. So we'll keep on going with it as long as people want to watch. And Decepticon, thanks also for always the fun first messages here of the night. Hold up. Is that Matt? It is indeed. And hope you're doing well, Decepticon. And Fishy Tank Land says, "Hi Matt, I own a Telluride SX Prestige. Trade in for a new or used Suburban." That comes down to what you need the Suburban for. If you need something that has enough cargo space for all three rows of people without putting a roof box on or something, then yeah, Suburban's great. If you need to tow more, Suburban's great. I it seems like with these newer V8s, there's been some people who have had some bad luck with the Chevy motor, but Chevy V8s are usually very solid. So if we're talking like 200,000 plus miles, I might have a little more confidence in the Suburban over the Telluride. But aside from those few things, I mean, there are also drawbacks to Suburban. It's harder to park, and it's worse on gas, all those types of things. So it really comes down to exactly what why you're considering a Suburban. But Suburban's great. I spent a week with the Tahoe a few years back. It's been a while though. I need to get back into one of those to review again because it's been too long. But yeah, I think they're really nice. And I just was in the new Expedition. That's great if you are okay not having a V8. And yeah, I think both those are really well done. Definitely better than Wagoneer. I still don't love Sequoia either. But also New Armada is very impressive too. If you want something that's body on frame, I was pleasantly surprised with New Armada. It's actually really well done, and could be another interesting choice there as well. But best of luck deciding. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions or if you want to do an in-depth deep dive. I do also do these one-on-one calls now on mattmoranmotoring.com. And you can always book a call there and we can have a discussion more in depth if that's something you're after. Let me see. Lance was talking about the original Dallas TV show. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I know the newer one is like a remake or something, but yeah, I'm completely out of the loop on both series. And Decepticon says my spots this week were an orange McLaren GT, Ferrari F355, and AMG GT in red. Man, you guys get some real good spots. So far this week, I think I actually, speaking of Stingers, I saw a very nice modified Kia Stinger tonight, GT with a nice exhaust. It sounded good. But honestly, I don't think I've actually spotted anything else noteworthy so far this week. So you guys definitely got me beat by a long shot. That's awesome. And Taste Bud says, was chasing a GT3 RS on the way home from work today. Man, another one. I could see the wing and arrow from a quarter mile behind it and never caught it. Nice. Well, they were moving, I guess. That's impressive. And still a fun spot nonetheless, even if it's in the distance. And let me see. Michelle says, also saw that Nissan confirmed a Z Nismo manual is coming. Thoughts? I hadn't seen that. And I just looked at car news the other day. I mean, it certainly makes sense, that they would do that. It's kind of, weird the way they tried to market it. It's like, oh, this is better and no one wants a manual and all this. It's like, no, people definitely want the manual. That's great news. If that's in fact true, that is great. And, I like when companies recognize, that they made the wrong move and fix it. And that's, a great example of that. I think that the Nismo, according to everyone else, is fantastic. Again, I didn't have a good time in it because the one I had zero grip for whatever reason. But it sounds like it's a really solid car. I want the Z to do well. It sounds like dealers are finally starting to loosen up on markups, and they're starting to actually sell a decent amount of Zs. And it's soon going to be, the only one left, with Supra going away here after this year. And Z, is going to keep going. I'm hoping for, several more years at least. So, it's still a great choice. It's not the most well done, as you've seen in all of my videos, but I'm happy that is something. If that's actually happening, that's great, and I'm excited for that. Excited to try it out, and I think we'll hopefully, amp up the appeal of that car a lot more for all the people who just, felt like they threw a wet blanket on it by, making it automatic only. So that's great. And Jay says, I did hear from some enthusiasts that the turbo 3-cylinder pushing 300 horsepower is already pretty much max for that car and not much to squeeze out aftermarket wise. Very intriguing. Any take on it? Yeah, like I said, I think that's kind of the consensus that I heard too, is there's not a whole lot of bandwidth there. So yeah, it comes down to how much you want to mod, but I think I love it the way it is stock. It's got so much character with that motor. And yeah, I guess it comes down to how badly you want more power. If you do want more power, again, going for a WRX and modding it, or any of the other options out there, you're gonna probably have a little bit more bandwidth than that does. But yeah, Jericho Roll is still magical in my book. And Orion says, I still like to see a regular Z. Really? Yeah, it took me a while, but I think a year or two ago, I finally saw my first one on the streets. And I think so far, this whole summer, I've seen maybe between 5 and 10. Not a ton, but decent amount of them. For a sports car, I suppose, and especially considering I don't go to car meets or anything. That's just literally driving around on the streets. So I'm hoping that they're starting to get a little more popular. The sales numbers are suggesting that they are selling better. And Lancelot, thanks so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate it, and happy to see. Looks like some mostly new faces there able to get the memberships here tonight. So we'll see if any of them are able to join in here in the stream. But thanks so much for your generosity, Lancelot. And Danny says, I drove alone today, and the Bolt is under 20 miles away from 76K. First day of senior year went well. That's great to hear. Rare spot for my area, at least. A Nissan Aria. Nice. Getting more and more confident about backing the Bolt into our driveway because we have to back it up so it can charge at the home charger. Only took me 2 tries to get the Bolt lined up into the driveway correctly. I'm impressed with myself due to having ADHD and all. Well, that's great. Yeah, it's one of those things, backing up. Reverse parking is really fun once you get the hang of it. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but honestly, I think, at least in my experience with all the press cars all the time, it's easier, since I don't have a lot of time to learn where the front end is on a car whenever you're doing really tight parking maneuvers. Being able to just back in is so much easier because you got all your mirrors, you got the backup camera, and it really takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. So it's not as much of a nail-biting experience as it might be when you're pulling in forwards. I actually prefer backing in basically everywhere. I don't do it a lot if I'm in a hurry, but when I got the spare time and there's not a zillion people around, I prefer backing in for sure. And that's cool you saw an Aria. We see a ton of Arias around here. So it's I think, being in a city, and a bluer city, I think there's definitely a lot more EVs around here than probably some other parts of the country. And Vishal says that the Volvo V90 is dead. RIP. I hadn't heard that either. That must be, again, just in the past couple of days here. But so I guess because we already had V90 had gone away, the regular version. So I'm assuming you're talking about the cross country, which I guess leaves us with the V60 cross country as the final wagon. And that one probably is going away any day now too. That's a shame though, but I can't say I'm surprised, but it is an end of an era to not have any Volvo wagons probably very soon here. And I got to tell my father-in-law, because he's been saying for a while he wants to get my mother-in-law a Volvo station wagon. That's been one of his promises from a long time ago, and sounds like his time is running out if he wants to buy one new at least. Other sites, hang on, it says the connection is unstable. See if we've reconnected. Maybe there's a little hiccup there. Hopefully you guys can still hear me okay. I don't see any comments yet. I'll see if anyone's able to give me a thumbs up that we're good to go. It briefly paused, but it's back. Thank you, Vishal. Anyway, so Dozier saying on a Toyota dealer sites, they still have 25 RAV4s in build phase or in transit. Guess it'll be a while before a new generation RAV4 starts arriving. I'm trying to remember what Toyota has said officially, because I do know something about that. I don't know if I'm at liberty to say. I mean, I'm pretty sure, what they said. I can confirm it's definitely coming before the end of the year. And beyond that, I don't actually know exactly when it's coming, but I have an idea based on other stuff that I know. It's, I'm pretty confident it's going to be in the fall. If there is some kind of hiccup as far as, production or shipping or something, it could be very end of this year. But I would say, you should expect it in the fall here sometime. But, in the meantime, I guess, they're shuffling around production a little bit. So there might not be the traditional drop off where you have to retool a factory. And so you stop production for a few months while you switch everything over. Because trying to remember the details because they were saying they were going to ship RAV4 somewhere else, I believe, and they were going to move production. And I think they're still doing that. And then they're going to move RAV4 back to, I think, more production ending up starting or being in Kentucky in 2027 or something, but it's going to be a while. So I don't recall, and maybe that's part of what the holdup is. We may be having some type of issues tariff wise where they're trying to figure out what they want to do. I'm not sure. But according to my knowledge, you should still expect it before the end of the year. But we'll see. And I'm very interested to see how they end up pricing it. Again, because of this very tricky kind of situation, primarily because they build a lot of them in Canada. The Canada tariffs are really bad still, with the ones we're putting on Canada, not Canadian stuff, but the stuff that we are posing to them is not great. So I think that is probably, there's multiple places that build RAV4, so it's not all on Canada, but I'm sure there's some headache behind the scenes there that's trying to get worked out. So there maybe is a little bit of reason there, but again, I think production's a little bit different than a traditional like one car in one factory, and you have to pause production to switch over to a new generation. So I wouldn't give up hope on RAV4 coming fairly soon. It should still be coming. I'm hoping fall or winter here. And let me see. Jay says, I saw Toyota unveil a V8 from Lexus on their track car with speculations next generation could be a V8 powered, but previous was a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo. Staying true to inline six is hard with partnerships. Yeah. I don't know what they're going to do. If you're talking about I know the GT3 car that was shown at Goodwood and stuff, and also at Monterey here, that is, I think they said twin turbo V8. And I'm not sure of any other details. I haven't seen anything. If anything just came out, I haven't seen that. But yeah, the GT3 car, and then they're going to make a road legal version for homologation purposes. And that is going to be really sweet. There's also, they're working on a new GR 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo motor that has been rumored to do, I think they said somewhere around 400 horsepower before electrification, and could also have a hybrid or plug-in hybrid component in certain applications, potentially to boost that even more. So there's lots of cool stuff coming from Toyota and Lexus and all that, in the pipeline here, it seems. And it's still why they're the most exciting company for me to root for and be a fan of right now, because of all the awesome product they have, whether we're talking the sporty stuff or the really well done regular stuff. But all the fun stuff in the pipeline, and knowing the enthusiasts, that are, pushing that stuff behind the scenes, the Akio Toyota and all those guys, it's exciting to, just hear these little bits and pieces, and, just having the patience to wait it out, because they, want to make sure they get it right. But I think it's going to be really cool with, there's rumors of Celica, MR2, all this stuff. We'll have to see, but it sounds like everything is most likely coming. So hopefully lots of fun enthusiast stuff here still coming from them. And I see Loss is able to get the membership there from Landswath, and happy to have you here, and I'll look forward to chatting with you if you want to chime in at all here, Loss. And let me see. Vishal says, also saw that Volkswagen will start using names with ID cars. First one is ID Polo, which was originally the ID2 All concept. Nice. I hadn't. I need to, I guess, really check out the news right before we do these live, so I'm a little more educated. I hadn't heard that either, but I think that was kind of hinted at with the ID GTI concept, and the idea that they obviously want to keep those very high equity names around and still let people know, hey, this is not the same one as before. It's electric and a little bit different. But I'm happy to hear they're doing it with Polo, and hopefully some of the others as well. I think that makes a lot of sense. And ID3 and ID4 and stuff maybe works okay for them, but it's just boring. Everyone has to have this letter and number hierarchy, and I get that it's logical, and especially to the Europeans, that's something that's very appealing, especially the Germans. But I think the names are still fun and kind of give a little bit more character too. And Mr. 705 says the stream might be lagging a little bit. Hopefully it's okay for everyone else. According to YouTube, they have a little dashboard that they show me. It says the stream health is excellent. So I don't know if they're full of crap or not, but hopefully it's okay. And Ryan says, I know you have a family, but if Ford makes an S650 Bullet, would you consider getting one down the line? No, not at all. I have zero interest in S650. I just do not like the interior. They got rid of all the historical cues. It's just two giant tablets, and it's not exciting to me. It would be so expensive. I wouldn't be able to afford it. And I still S550 is peak in my mind. And I think S550 is kind of where I'm going to stop with Mustangs, as far as my interest in owning one. So I think, someone was talking about this the other day. I love the Bullet, and I think, if the current owner of my Bullet ever wanted to get rid of it and I had the money to buy it back, I would probably want mine back, but I don't think it would feel the same if I bought another Bullet. So there's probably other cars I'd buy instead, like Gio Corolla and stuff. But if I were to get another Mustang, I think I would possibly go for a GT350. If I were ever to get back into one, just because, again, it's a different kind of experience. It wouldn't feel like a Bullet replacement necessarily. And it's magical, great manual in those, even better than the Bullet. Great high red line with that very special engine. And since I know it would be a garage clean, I wouldn't mind the fact that it might not be as reliable as a regular Coyote. But I really don't envision myself ever going back to Mustang. Just because, again, now in this stage of life I'm in, our daughter's getting bigger, and, I'll be probably driving her around more, and I want something that has a more usable back seat. And so for that reason, I'm most likely going to be sticking to 4-doors for the next, 15 odd years here for my vehicle. Obviously the Fiat is a 2-door, but as of right now, since I have so many press cars, it's not like it's something I ever really need to drive her in. But I think if I were to buy a car I'm going to keep for a while, I'm going to spend some money on. The Fiat, I was looking at an Ioniq 6. I went for the Fiat because it was just dirt cheap, and I still really love it. It's just a fun character. But, I always was intending on getting a 4-door, and I think that's kind of going to be the goal here for the next decade and a half, I think, unless I have the luxury of multiple cars, in which case, if I'm buying a fun car that's just for me, it's going to be a used F-Type most likely, because I still desperately want one of those, and they are dirt cheap right now, and I've always wanted a convertible. So that's kind of where my wish list sits currently. And I think, like I was also talking about with one of the other commenters in a prior live stream here, I think the idea of an Aston Martin Rapide would be very fun, because those are also insanely dirt cheap. Not like stupid cheap, but for an Aston Martin with a V12, they are, I think you can get them for like under 30 grand or so now. That would be a really fun one, especially if I'm not going to use it all the time. But it has 4 doors. It is also a glorious sounding V12 Aston Martin. That thing might bury me in maintenance costs, but that's another fun one I'm considering if I ever were to pick up another car. So lots of different things, but most likely not a Bullet. An 08, if I could find a nice high miles 08 that's well taken care of, and I had the cash, since you can't really finance something like that, but if I was looking, I've always loved the 08, so I wouldn't mind possibly going back to that generation. But I think definitely not an S650 in any scenario. But Danny says the cars I forgot I spotted on Monday were a Saturn Astra XR 2-door, very nice, and the other one was a 2006 Forester 2.5X with the rare sports package. Very cool. That was, I think I remember that sports package where it kind of, you can get it in more Raleigh blue, right? And it had, it was a nice look. Great cars, and it's awesome that Subaru offered that. Because you could actually get it with the XT, right? Back then too, which is even cooler. And Vishal says a nice spot of the Astra. Yeah, as 2-door is especially rare. My neighbor across from me had a 4-door Astra for a while, so I saw one every day. That's cool. And Pure Vibes, thanks for stopping by. And Let me see. Chad says, does brake-based torque vectoring cause significant uneven brake wear? When I saw your Subaru review, it made me wonder. That's a great question. No, typically from what I've seen, brake-based torque vectoring does not cause uneven brake wear. The reason being is that one, it's a very minor drag. We're not talking about clamping down with any real force because that would very much upset the balance of the car and be very unstable and crazy. It's a very slight drag that it just barely kisses it just to give you a little bit of resistance, just to tuck in, the front end just a little bit and rotate the back just a little bit. It's very, very minor, so much so that you shouldn't notice any appreciable brake wear. Maybe, I mean, again, I haven't really, done a deep dive survey on this. Maybe over the course of 60,000 miles, if you do a lot of back roads driving, you might see higher rear brake wear than fronts, but typically the fronts are doing more of the work anyway. So I'd say that, in a lot of vehicles, you don't have to replace all 4 pads at the same time. Oftentimes it's, oh, the rears are fine, let's do the fronts, or vice versa. So possibly it might even get closer to evening out your brake wear a little bit. But again, that also is assuming that that's working all the time, and it very rarely actually is. It needs to see a certain level of G. It needs to see a certain speed, certain conditions that have to be met before it even engages that. And then again, it's such a minor thing. At least when I've discussed brake-based torque vectoring with other, OEM engineers, they've always said it's not really, anything you need to worry about. Maybe others would like to differ on that. I don't know, because again, I've never owned a car that has had that to say, but I don't think that it should be anything you would actually notice, most likely on a long-term basis even. And a great question, Chad. And Stratus Edge says, hey, Matt, finally checked out the Junkyard channel. Cool stuff. Did you hear about the Charger EV owner that got a ticket for a loud exhaust? I hadn't heard that, but that's funny. And I mean, it makes sense because that thing, it does the same decibels as a Hellcat. Again, I know everyone doesn't like it and it is what it is, but, they tick the box as far as volume goes. So it's... maybe that made a few people hate it a little bit less. I don't know, but there's probably no redeeming that car at this point, no matter how awesome it is. And I'm glad you like the Junkyard channel, though. And thanks for checking it out. I really appreciate it. It's doing really well. I guess maybe it's just with, YouTube being more and more challenging as the years go by. It's definitely exceeding my expectations for what that first video was going to do. It's already at like 10,000 views. Now YouTube might just be fluffing it because, they're trying to give small channels an advantage, and seeing a channel, that's smaller, they may just push it harder than they do on this channel. But, so the jury's still out as far as whether YouTube actually likes that channel or not and pushes it. But so far, I'm very happy with that. And I'm going to be hopefully filming another video here in the next week or two, and trying to do those on a more regular basis. And we'll see where it goes. But it's exciting because, diversifying is really important. And yes, it still is a YouTube channel, but at least, it takes a little pressure off of this channel and having to stress over picking the right car and making sure that everything performs as best as it possibly can. If I have multiple, YouTube revenue streams coming in, that certainly will, be a little bit of a stress reliever for me. So we'll see what happens with the channel, but I'm excited for it so far. Thank you to everyone who's subscribed so far and checked out the channel. I think we're over 600 subscribers on that channel now, which is awesome. And I'm so thankful for all of your support too. And YH, thank you so much for a super chat. Speaking of support, he says, Chinatown, red light, spotted a cop flip a U-turn. I dipped right onto a side street and floored it. By the time I hit the end, he was 150 yards back. I pulled over thinking he might have gotten my tags. He asked why I'm in a rush, and I was straight up with him. He gave me the smallest ticket, $65. He said he could have even towed my car, and a $650 fine. Yeah, I mean, Canada doesn't mess around, so you definitely got off lucky there. And, I've found, though, that cops do very much appreciate honesty, and just being, straight up with you. And I mean, like, Yeah, the one speeding ticket I ever got, this was back in 2011, I think. It was, yeah, 2010, 2011, something like that. It was just a speed trap where they were literally just like pulling a U-turn and just circling, because there was this one little like blind corner on the highway where, you come around, it's like, oh, there's a cop right there ready to nab you, and you had no warning or anything. And So, I was doing 81 in a 65, and he pulled me over. He said, "You know why I pulled you over?" I said, "I know I was going a little bit fast." And, he's like, "Yeah, you're doing 81 in a 65." He's like, "But I'm going to knock it down to 5 over." I thought he was doing me a bigger favor than he actually was, because he saved me the points, which I appreciate. But in that area of West Virginia, the difference between 5 over and 50 over is a difference of like $50. Like it's like a microscopic amount of money that it increased as you went up in speed. So it was really just, once you got pulled over, was the court fee of $150 or whatever that was the big ticket thing there, and that's all he was after. And they just wanted their money. They didn't care about throwing points on everyone's licenses or anything. But and with other instances in the past, in my crazier years, whenever I wasn't driving, but we were pulled over, other times, being honest, being cool with them, being very, making sure that they feel safe and everything by, obviously doing all the things you should do at a traffic stop. That goes a long way. And if you're respectful and yeah, you're not belligerent and stuff, then it it certainly helps. I mean, sometimes the cops just, a jerk or having a bad day, and there's nothing that'll help you. But if you find a reasonable one, yeah, a little nice kindness, does go a long way. But be careful out there, YH. You're living the real life Need for Speed Underground life there. And it's, I swear, it's like actually like, or Most Wanted, I guess, is what I should be referring to, where you like have your like cool down zones after the cops chased you, and you hide out in a shack or something, and then you spray paint your car, and then you go back out or whatever. So be careful out there, man. And Cameron, thanks so much for being a member for 7 months now. I appreciate that. He says, "Hey Matt, man, Camry SE got totaled. I'm good. I'm glad you're good, but that sucks." He says, "Got myself gap insurance on that Camry. Good idea. Picked up myself a new 25 Mazda 3 sedan Select Sport." Well, that's awesome. I hope you're enjoying the Mazda. And yeah, sorry to hear about the Camry though. That is yeah, but hopefully the Mazda's a nice little upgrade. I just obviously did the manual hatch, and I love the Mazda 3 still. So great choice there. Hope you're enjoying it. And yeah, but rip to the Camry. Camrys are really great cars too. And let me see. Where were we here? So I'm getting back to where we left off with the member questions here. So let me see. I'm still looking for my spot here. Mr. 705 says the stream's all good. He just had to refresh. Cool. Appreciate it, 705, for letting me know. And Danny says, "Y'all think 2010s was when Subaru went CVT crazy? You're wrong. In 1989, the Justy pioneered the eCVT. Yeah. Subaru was one of the first. You're right, with the CVT. And that is one factoid that I do know is, that Subaru had it, and then they got rid of it, and then they brought it back. I think they might have kept the eCVT around in some of the K cars and stuff in Japan, but here in America, after Justy, I don't think we ever got it until Impreza, right? Once they finally ditched the 4-speed, they just went straight to the CVT, I believe. But yeah, crazy car trivia there. And Ryan agrees about the S550s. Danny says, "Can't be in a live stream without me hitting you with a weird car trivia question." Absolutely. Telling you, if there's ever like Car Jeopardy, you're a top candidate to go on. And he also says, "To answer your question about getting the sports package on the 06 Forester XT, they only offer the sports package on the 2.5X models." Interesting. Okay. I could have sworn maybe it was later model years, because I remember seeing one with the hood scoop. But I don't recall when that was. Maybe that was before. I feel like it was maybe 08 or 09 for those. I don't know. But anyway, Yeah, that's still a cool spot. And Vishal says, is Honda going to come out with a PHEV drivetrain? I'd imagine it's in the works, but they make absurd decisions like not offering all-wheel drive on the Accord and HRV hybrids. So who knows? Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree about the decisions. And um, there's well, this is another less frequently brought up complaint that I have is that they have a plug-in hybrid system in the hydrogen fuel cell version of the CRV that like 5 people in the world are driving. And I said this in the weekly update back whenever that was revealed. I was like, one, I'm happy that we have a plug-in hybrid component, but two, why is this being in the hydrogen thing? I mean, maybe they're using it to pioneer and like work out the bugs with beta testing it in the hydrogen before it goes prime time in the regular CRV, but like they should just be working really hard to get that in there as fast as possible. Surely they've seen RAV4 Prime and the red hot demand for that all these years. They see the Sportage offers it. They see that Santa Fe offers it, that Tucson offers it. You know, even Ford Escape offers it. It's a major deficiency in their lineup. And again, it's not like they don't have this stuff where they don't know how to do it. They have it. They know how to do it, and they're wasting it on a hydrogen version that's going to go nowhere. That's a pointless exercise. And I mean, I know some people are still very excited about hydrogen, but we can't even get behind EVs whenever we have a massive charging network. And we have, what, I think a total of maybe 80 hydrogen fueling stations in America, 80. And, you know, so to say it's a pipe dream, I mean, we're at the stage with hydrogen that we were with EVs like in the 90s. Like that's, you know, so maybe in 30 years we can have a real discussion about hydrogen and, you know, make some real investments. And I know some others, you know, think it'll at least have some promise with commercial stuff, and that makes sense. Commercial vehicles where, you know, you need to have a liquid fuel just for weight purposes and stuff. Airplanes could be another example. You know, there's instances where it makes sense, but, you know, trying it out in cars. I mean, they've been doing it for decades already, and it still has gone really nowhere. And so, yeah, that's another nonsensical decision by Honda. You know, you have it there. Like, please, like some Honda engineer on a weekend, go in and, you know, pull one of those systems off a parts shelf, screw it into the CRV and, you know, into a regular hybrid CRV and call it a day. Like, I mean, you know, I know there's a little bit more to it, but probably not that much more. Because again, they have the battery pack that fits already. They have all the wiring. They've figured out. They've done all the hard work. It's there, and you know, then it also, by extension, if it's works with CRV, you know, it's on the same platform as Accord and others. I mean, you can also transplant that to other things as well. Long, deep sigh for Honda's decisions. But yeah, there's no good reason for them to not have it, and I guess they're happy to miss out on sales. But yeah, it's a real head scratcher for me. But they do have it. Probably very few people know about that, but it's out there. It's just that they're putting in the wrong thing. And let me see here. So YH, thank you so much for another super chat as well. He says, an S650 is greater than S550. The S650 has really grown on me. I'm glad you're loving it. And I mean, in some ways, you know, it's a more rigid chassis. The quicker steering is nice. You do have a little bit more horsepower and the dark horse there. So there's some perks. And if you are, you know, someone who does like the giant screens, you don't care about having the historical, you know, ties to the interior and stuff. It's great. I mean, it's a great car objectively. It's just, you know, all the appeal has been thrown out the window for me with just the decisions they made for a 650. But my objective car reviewer hat on, it's the last V8, you know, manual sports car, muscle car, whatever. And it still looks good, and it still has all the tech that makes it competitive, and it's, you know, a great car to drive still. And I have no issues with it. It's just, yeah, personally, just not something I'm, you know, fawning over like I used to. And thank you again for the super chat. And yeah, I hope your S650 keeps treating you well. He says, all I need is another 50 horsepower and I'm good. And he says, all I want is to eat scat packs and spray Hellcats soon. I'm sure you'll get there very soon. Just stay safe out there. And let me see. Cameron says the Mazda 3 drives much better and sportier than the Camry SE for sure. Nice. Yeah. I mean, obviously, just even the innate differences of being lighter and smaller. It's definitely going to help you. But I was really impressed with that too in the manual that I just did, where it's all these little Mazda 3s that are so light, they're barely over 3,000 pounds. They drive great, they're quiet, they're comfy, they're luxurious, honestly. It's a great little car still. And it's so wild that it's 6 years old now, and it's just as appealing now as it was back in 2019, even more so in some ways, with all the screen overload and lack of buttons and things like that are starting to proliferate. Even that segment, it's really great to see Mazda 3. It's one of those cars, kind of like Lexus IS and others, where it's kind of approaching the don't mess with it, leave it as it is kind of thing. It just needs more rear legroom, I think, to increase its appeal with the masses. But if you don't need to have a huge back seat, I absolutely love it. And YH says, he said, I caught up to you and I was like, yeah, because I pulled over. Oh, man. Oh, I'm glad you got one with a good sense of humor then. If you said that, that's funny. He says, and I also had no front plates, 5% tint, no insurance, and ownership on me. Man, well, that's not a good move to not have your proof of insurance and registration on you. I don't know, man. That's really impressive. That you must have had, a cop that really liked you. That's because here, that, you don't have those things. That's immediately. I think proof of or not having proof of insurance, I think they immediately tow your car here. I'm not entirely sure of all the laws, but that's instant, gigantic issue. That's almost as bad as driving without a license at all, or driving without proof of license. But crazy. And he says, I think that spray thing to lose your water level is from Grand Theft Auto, I think. Gotcha. Yeah, maybe I'm confusing the two. I thought there was something, maybe it was mods you could do in Most Wanted, but maybe not. Maybe it's just GTA. Anyway, and also Captain Midnight says, it's Chase, by the way, not Cameron. Sorry, it says Cameron on your username, but I can just do Captain Midnight or Chase. All right. And thanks for letting me know. And Michelle says, watched your Mazda 3 manual review. Nice that it still exists. If only it was a little bit bigger inside. Yeah, same page there. I probably would have bought it. Even the sedan felt cramped to me, so hatch was out of the question. Yeah, and that's understandable. And your Jetta is certainly the roomier car, a lot more space, and a little easier to live with as far as that goes. So don't blame me one bit. But yeah, Mazda 3 that's the only thing that's holding it back, I think, from bigger success. And Danny says, I saw a very interesting engine swap done to an 09 Forester. Someone stuffed a second-gen Coyote with the S197 Getrag MT82 6-speed manual transmission. The Coyote was being kept bone stock, probably because there wasn't any room to put anything else on it. That's wild. I hadn't seen that. That's really fun. There was also, I saw a guy that, I don't know how he does it, but I stumbled upon his channel several years ago, and I don't even remember the name of the channel at this point, but he had an STI, WX STI, that he first put a V8 in it. Then I think he went to a V10 and then a V12, if I remember correctly. If you look up, I think if you just search V12 STI on YouTube, you should see it. I don't know. It's it was just bonkers to me that was actually a running driving thing that worked. That's awesome. Someone put that in a Forester. Must have been a blast. And I know back even when I had the BRZ, there's some people that were putting in Coyotes and LSs in the BRZ, and that would be a lot of fun, especially the Coyote, since you have the retaining of the high RPM kind of power band. That would have been a cool combo. BRZ with Coyote motor, kind of blending my two loves together. It would have been really fun. Maybe someday I'll get a chance to drive a V8 BRZ. That'd be cool. I see also Chase says, hope you're good, Matt. Hope you're doing well too. And YH says the Mazda 3 hatchback with turbo and all-wheel drive is decent. Yeah, the turbo ones are great too. It just adds a lot of bulk, and it's interesting. When I was doing research for the manual review, I was looking on Reddit to see what other people who had owned the manuals had thought about them. And there's a lot of people that said, I test drove the turbo and the manual, and they actually chose the manual without the turbo because they just really liked the extra lightweight, and they actually just thought that it was a little bit of a more engaging vehicle, not just because of the manual, but just felt a little more fun in the corners and stuff. And I mean, I appreciate all-wheel drive around here, and the turbo is great, and I don't mind even losing the manual too much. So it'd be a tough choice for me, but the manual was really fun. And someone very kindly informed me in the comments on the manual Mazda 3 review that there's actually a supercharger kit. There's a company called VT, I think called VT Racing, that does a supercharger for the NA Mazda 3s that gives you between, I think they said 40 to 60% more horsepower, which puts you in the mid 200s to 300 horsepower kind of range, with still, I believe, having the manual. You might have to do some extra supporting mods there, but I think the full kit was like $4,000. Not terrible, but also not super cheap either. But that would be very fun. That'd be another cool one to try. But if you really love that package and you want more power, but you still want the manual, I'd rather have the supercharger for sure over a turbo, probably, because that would be so cool. Superchargers are most of the time cooler than turbos in my mind. So I didn't know that he existed. So now anyone who's ever considering one that feels like 191 horsepower isn't enough, there is a supercharger kit. Obviously your warranty goes out the window and all that, but fun that there's that option. And Mr. 705 says, I think Honda has the PHEV, in other markets. I can't understand why they don't bring it to America. Interesting. I hadn't followed that. I thought maybe they have it in China, because I know PHEVs are very popular in China too. But yeah, I feel like I recall what you're talking about, that there are maybe regular PHEV CRVs in other markets. It's not also just Honda. Chevy has the same issue. They have an Equinox plug-in hybrid in I don't know, somewhere in the Asian markets where I must sell a tiny fraction of the amount they would sell here. And it's over there. And I think Mary Barra was like, yeah, it'll be here in a couple of years. And it's like, again, another deep breath. Maybe there's stuff I just don't understand. But why does it take multiple years to take something that is done, that's there, put it in a box, and ship it here? Why does that take 2 years? I know there's certification, and I know there's tuning it for American roads and little things like that, but none of that stuff should take 2 years, especially knowing that, again, RAV4 Prime has been a hot seller for the past 4 years now, maybe more. This isn't something that happened overnight. It's been a long running thing, and it's just all these companies are so slow to respond. It's like, are you trying to compete? Are you really trying, or are you just phoning it in? And there's so many times where I really feel like Honda and Chevy too also sometimes just phone it in. Now they both do great products in other areas, and they do some real pioneering stuff. Like, Civic Hybrid is best in class as far as hybrid, just being so good. They still have awesome products, of course. And same thing goes for Chevy with, Trax being, the affordable car champion that, finally offered people something compelling with a bunch of space that wasn't a penalty box, for under 25 grand. I mean, there's plenty of credit for both companies that is due, but there's other just real strange decisions that, again, there must be other forces at play and issues that are holding these things up. But it really boggles my mind whenever these other markets get stuff that we can't get. Same thing, Subaru sells a WRX wagon in Mexico, where I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not super educated on Mexico, but I don't know if there's a single place in Mexico that's actually inhabited that gets any kind of snow. And they're selling an all-wheel drive wagon in Mexico. We can't have it here in America. There's just so many things where I'm like, give me strength. What is happening? I don't know. It just makes no sense. But anyway, I'll get off the soapbox here. But let me see. So Danny says, okay, so 06 only naturally aspirated was the sports package on the Foresters. 07 they offered the sports package on the 2.5 XT. Okay, so I wasn't crazy. Thanks for looking that up, Danny. I appreciate it. And Antoine says, hey, Matt, what do you think of the Acura Integra Type S as a daily driver? I think it's an awesome daily. I absolutely love Integra. I believe Jay still has one, if I remember correctly. So he can maybe weigh in too. But I love Integra Type S. It's I mean, it's still an Integra, and it's a very aggressive setup, but it's softer than Civic Type R, so certainly the better daily driver of the two. But I adore Integra Type S. I actually see like a couple on a regular basis around here, and it always makes me very happy to see them being driven as regular daily drivers. They're great dailies. You have fantastic stereo. You still have adaptive dampers and all that. It's just you have very thin sidewalls on the tires. So there's some other drawbacks, but I mean again, nice big back seat. You have great big hatch. You have the active exhaust, so it's a little bit more daily friendly, I guess, than Type R in that way too. And I love Integra Type S. Told if you have the money and you want, especially if you want a manual and you're cool with front wheel drive, that's probably where my money would go if I had that much money to spend and I was looking for front wheel drive and a manual. Because I love Integra Type S, so highly recommend. Let me see. BT says, "Hi, Matt. Thanks for the live chat. Thanks for joining." He says, "With new cars coming all the time, how can you stay in love with one car?" I think it comes down to your personality, I suppose, and how you view the new car market and all that. So I mean, for me personally, if you're talking, with like all the press cars and stuff, I think there's certain cars that make a mark. Like again, get your shots ready, GR Corolla. And there's others as well, Ioniq 5N. I mean, there's a lot of cars where I'm like, man, I don't want to give this car back, and I add it to my list of like, hey, like if I had X amount of dollars to spend, and I was in this very specific price range, like I would actually, get this car that I just had for a week because it's really great. So there's a lot of those, and I think that, can weigh in on how good a car is. Now, just because I really love it doesn't mean everyone's going to love it. But, to me, that is oftentimes coincides with, a mark of greatness where it's like this car is really, really well done, that I drive all this stuff and this one stands out. I think that's, and so I think that's why, and there's other people, even friends and stuff who drive, a car, and they test drive something, they're super impressed with it. And I'm like, yeah, but you should really drive the other stuff too that it competes with, and then see if it's still as impressive as you think it is. Because, without context, it's very easy to be impressed by a lot of stuff these days, even stuff that, in my opinion, maybe isn't the best. But, I think for me, it's also just like, there's press cars and there's always new cars coming out. But I think, when you fall in love with a car and you're really attached to it, it transcends, the idea that yes, you're going to lose in a drag race to these new cars coming out, or you're not going to have the same luxury features as these other new cars coming out, or, the styling isn't as crazy. But, once you develop a real bond with a car, it's, I mean, I don't want to, say it's the same as like being in a relationship or something, but it's a similar type of thing where like there's always, new people, plenty of fish in the sea, that kind of stuff. But like you have that bond, and it doesn't matter about the other people or the other cars or whatever. You have that bond with that car, and I think that is something that's kind of, again, is stronger than whatever new stuff is out there. That is trying to distract you from the car you love. And also like with the cars, we have, like, I love that little Fiat 500e that I have. I think, a car like that, it's also just the uniqueness of, I drive all these, giant things that are heavy and expensive and fast and luxurious and whatever. And just like the scrappy nature of that little Fiat is really fun, and just a different change of pace from the usual stuff that I drive. And like with the Lyric, we've really fallen in love with the Lyric that Beth just got, a little over a month and a half here. And that it's a case of like, this does luxury EV better than most of the other stuff that I've, tested, especially at its price point. And, again, that just being very well executed helps it to, stand above the rest and really promote that bond, I guess you could say. So hopefully I understood your question correctly, but I think that's kind of, the best way I can kind of, rationalize my thinking here on the topic. And hopefully that answers your question there. And thanks for stopping by, BT. And Jordan, thank you so much for being a member for 23 months now. I really appreciate it. He says, hey, Matt, Chad made it home in time for the live. Is it possible to have a home EV charging station strictly connected to home solar? Yes. Now, I guess you could pay to just have a completely separate electrical system that bypasses everything else in your house. But the way most people just have it set up is if you have home solar, it feeds into your battery backup or just feeds into, whatever your house is consuming at the moment. If you don't have a battery backup, and just, helps to, power that. But there are some people that are very adamant about I want this to just be entirely powered by the sun and I don't want to go off the grid. And those people are, again, running batteries to store that power so that they always have that power and are able to, make sure that they're not turning on the grid, versus some of these others around here, especially it's very expensive to get the batteries. And a lot of people, they just kind of do this thing where, you just kind of have the solar going and it sometimes is working. Sometimes, it's not actually feeding in if you're not actively generating, so it depends. But if you really want to be super sustainable about it, you get the battery, you store your energy there, and then you run your whole house off of the solar and the battery pack. And that way you're powering your car entirely by the sun, or you buy a Prius plug-in hybrid with the solar roof option. And then it has its own solar panels. And as long as you park it outside, it charges itself to a certain degree. Like I said, when I tested it, I think I was getting 4 miles a day, having it soaking in the summer sun, from morning till night. So not enough for most people to do a commute in, but if you live in an urban area or you live in a place where you don't have to drive far, for me, I could potentially, get to the little, convenience store and back on just solar power generated by the car itself. Yeah. Anyway, so that's usually the way people typically do it there. And great question, Jordan. Thanks for stopping by. And I was happy to chat with Chad here earlier too. And Stratus, thanks so much for being a member for 9 months now. I really appreciate that. He says it's great that Subaru still had a CD player as you had shown on the Legacy video. Do you think CarPlay and Android Auto will one day see a similar end? There's companies trying very hard to do that, Tesla, Rivian, GM primarily. But I don't think so. I think, we'll always have some extension of a smartphone integration in cars, just because we all see how fast smartphones are moving and have moved and continue to move, where, there's no way that a car company can catch up. Even tech companies can't catch up to, the top dogs in that, market. And this was always this stupid thing about car companies saying, oh, well, we can do our own infotainment and this, that, and the other. Now, some of them, have, done pretty good jobs. I think, the Google built-in systems we see in a lot of stuff, including GM, is very good, especially if you're not in the Apple ecosystem where you have more exclusive, walled off apps. If you're just Android, I think the Google built-in systems will work mostly okay, as long as you're fine having your car signed into every one of your accounts. Which, by the way, I was thinking about this the other day, that what happens if you're in one? I guess you can just have to manually sign up, but it's like an extra step. If your car ever gets stolen and you have, Google built-in thing where you have, your YouTube account signed in on the car, you have, all of your apps and all of your smartphone data essentially tied to the car. You got to go through every single one of your apps and find a way to see if you can log out remotely from the car. But that's another privacy concern of if you have everything automatically going to your car, what happens if you're not driving your car, you're not in your car, and people are getting access to all of your favorite stuff or whatever the case is. It just, I personally like the idea of when I remove my phone, I take most of my data out of the car with me, and again, everyone feels differently about data stuff and all that. So it is what it is. But I think that because people are always on their phones and they're always doing stuff with their phone whenever you get into the car, having that experience transfer over is the magic of CarPlay and Android Auto, because that's what people are used to and their comfort level and what they want. And I don't ever see a car company getting beyond Apple and Google and Samsung and all these other companies that have just done such a good job. I just there's even a lot of people really love Tesla's system, but like according to my knowledge, you can't do actual good texting, iMessage texting with tapbacks and with being able to select conversations and not do everything by voice. Tesla can't do that. Rivian can't do that. GM can't do that in the EVs. You can have little rudimentary like notification things that pop up with a message. Sometimes it's read to you, and you got to do everything through dictation and stuff. Which in my experience is actually more distracting than just having a familiar experience with CarPlay. So, for all these reasons, I think that there's a barrier there. If anything is harder, human beings generally are very lazy creatures. We don't like change. We don't want to have to learn new things. We don't want to have to adapt if we don't have to. And I'm one of them. And this is another example of that. We have something that works. And until it stops working or until there's a glaring deficiency in it, like why swim upstream? Like just go with the flow and give people what they want. And I still think that Rivian sales would be much better if they had CarPlay. I know for a fact. I mean, Beth loves the way the R2 looks, and obviously with the way the whole tax credit fell apart and all that crazy crap that's going on, our timeline was pushed forward. But like back whenever the Mach-E, we were supposed to keep it until 2026. The R2 was supposed to be out around then, and Beth really did love the R2, the way it looked, the packaging, and if R2 had CarPlay and was available and it lined up timing wise, I mean that probably would have been a very strong consideration for us. And like it's a deal breaker as a result of that. Same thing back before Tesla was polarizing, back when we were shopping for the Mach-E. Model Y wasn't even a consideration because of no CarPlay. And I know, lots of people like every time someone's defending GM and stuff, they say, oh, well, Tesla gets away with it just fine. It's like, yeah, but like, imagine if Tesla did have it, all the people they wouldn't have turned away, they would have had even more success. And, maybe Tesla will get more desperate as things go on here, and maybe they'll cave. I'm happy that Lucid, added it in after initially not doing that. And so, I'm hoping that, they see the light there. But I don't foresee it ever ending, for a long, long time. Yeah, the only thing I can think of is if we end up in some type of autonomous world where you don't need to have a car integration, you can just have your phone or your vision goggles or whatever else, you can just do whatever in the car. You don't have to pay attention to anything. Then there's probably no need to have any dash screen at all, and other than like a TV screen if you're just sitting back or something. But like having to interact with your car screen probably won't need to be a thing at that point, maybe. I mean, again, that's decades away still. So I mean, I think that for the next 10 years or more, I don't see CarPlay or Android Auto going away. But great question. And I see we are over time here, so I'm going to try and get to the last few here, and then we will sign off here for the night. So I see Wyatt says he had insurance on his email though, and so that's good that you're able to we're able to prove your insurance to the cop. Vishal says the Mazda 3 and the Jetta were the appealing cars for me in the price range when shopping last year because they were the only ones that offer regular autos instead of CVTs. That totally makes sense. And let me see. So and Chase says YouTube and the internet are dangerous as it is. Just wanted to let you know when commenting. No worries. And Wyatt says, I ride around with my left arm out the window holding a belt. I give Mopars the belt. You're funny. And he says all-wheel drive's a must in the brutal winters here, I'm sure. Yeah. I love driving in snow, so that'd be so fun. I still need to spend more time in Canada because it seems like there's just so many things I would love about Canada. That's Maybe someday I'll make some time to head up there and check it out a little bit more. And Chase says the Mazda 3 Turbo feels like a revs like a diesel, shifts under 6,000 RPMs, and you feel like either the stock ECU or the transmission are holding that boosted 2.5 back. Yeah, and I believe it is gear limited to as far as boost goes. I don't think you get full boost in that car till maybe it's third gear, fourth gear. I mean, it takes a while because they don't want to overwhelm the all-wheel drive system or the transmission. There's some limits there for sure. So yeah. I mean, it does upshift pretty early, but there are some that are even worse, believe it or not. So to me, it's not terrible, but it makes up for it by just having a boatload of torque, which is really fun in its own way, and having that in a little tiny hatch that's luxurious and comfy is great. So he says also, never mind. Danny says, I forgot what Gen Coyote they stuffed into the 2009 Forester XT. And also it's twin turboed with a 2017 Mustang manual transmission. Owner does not tell us what Gen Coyote it is. Gotcha. It was also rear wheel drive converted. Yeah, I would assume they would have to, because otherwise, trying to work out how to put all wheel drive in that would be very hard. Wyatt says there's definitely snow in Mexico, just not the ones Mother Nature makes. Oh man. Okay, valid point. We got plenty of that here too, I'm sure, in America, from everything I've seen. But let me see. German Engineering says, how do you think the 8Y RS3 compares to the G87 M2? I'm foggy on my generation codes there. So if you're talking current RS3 versus current M2, M2 is really cool. I haven't driven the updated version. So I've just done the original, or for this current generation, the original one with the manual, which I think was like 450 some horsepower. But 2 Series is great. And if you want, the rear wheel drive fun and the manual, obviously there's a lot of redeeming qualities. They're really kind of polar opposites in my opinion, because they do very different things. They're both special cars in their own way. To me, as much as I love manuals and rear wheel drive, the RS3 is so special that wins out in my rankings personally, with my subjective, thoughts and everything. But RS3 has tail happy characteristics thanks to the crazy engineers that put bigger tires on the front than the rear. You got skinnier rear tires in the RS3. I love that. The only car in the world, I think, at least modern, that has that. You have the 5-cylinder that sounds phenomenal. Just so many good things about that. I will have an RS3 press car here at the end of the month. So I'll give you updated thoughts on the refreshed RS3. I mean, I'm not expecting it to really be any different than before, but I am very much excited to spend another week with an RS3 because they are magical. And so yeah, stay tuned for that video though. YH likes this car is loud and obnoxious, preferably a Ford. And Vishal says iPhone 17 is being announced next week. Are you upgrading this year? Possibly. I'm on the fence. I'm usually a typical 2-year upgrader every 2 years. That's when I'm eligible, and I'm usually just thinking, well, that's better, I'm going to go for it. But I have the 15 Pro, and I still love it because with the 16 they went up to the bigger screen. It's not as it's a little thicker and just a little bulkier. I'm on the fence about whether I'm going for 17. This is, I think, the first year in a long time, maybe ever, where I'm going to be watching the presentation and really I'm going to need to be sold by Apple. They're going to have to really sell it to me. Because if it seems kind of weak sauce and I'm kind of meh, then I'm probably going to stick with mine. I do stay up on all the rumors and stuff. The 18, I'm not interested in the fold that's coming next year either, because that's going to be a book style fold. I want a flip phone style fold. If I wasn't so in love with the Apple ecosystem, I would have totally, and I didn't need a top-notch camera. So basically, if I wasn't a YouTuber and I wasn't in the Apple ecosystem, so intensely, I would totally have the new Razr because I love the Razr Flip. And it just, that's the phone I actually want. And it doesn't sound like Apple's going to have anything like that anytime soon. But it sounds like the iPhone 19, that's the one that they're saying is going to be the actual iPhone 10 kind of moment, because it's going to be the 20th anniversary, for that one. And that's going to be kind of the bigger deal. And there's going to be supposedly an all glass design, or the appearance of all glass. So really my eye is on the 19. So it's going to be, is 17 good enough that I just go for it? And then, plan on the 19 being the real one and the 17 just kind of being a stepping stone, or I just hold on to the 15 here and see if that'll last me until the 19, because I definitely don't want to get the 18. It sounds like that's just for the non-flip or non-fold ones. It's just going to be like a hole punch, dynamic island instead of the bigger one, which, doesn't really, I like the dynamic island. Honestly, it doesn't bother me. So, so yeah, I'll be very closely watching on Tuesday to see, what they end up doing there. But curious if any of you are getting, are going to be getting it or excited about it. But Chad says the only issue I see with the CD player is that it faces up. I just imagine Chrome's falling into it. Oh yeah, for the Subaru. Yeah, I mean, being in the center armrest hopefully helps a little bit, but you're right. That isn't a good design for a CD drive for sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's probably a way to maybe clean it out. I don't know if you can take it apart easily or not, but yeah, you're right. That's a very valid concern. And Jordan says, I just downloaded the app Suno. It creates AI generated songs based off written song titles or lyric inputs. The next thing for car infotainment, play me a song about cars. There is a good chance that something like that, a lot more ChatGPT integration comes into cars. I think that is the more logical next step, while also retaining, the smartphone integration. And I think we can also, there's opportunity for AI to be a little smarter with like the engine sounds. I think that could be a room for improvement on sporty vehicles of, you telling the car like, let's, be DJ here, try and say, hey, like I'm trying to have the car sound like a crazy V8 today. Can you do that for me? And play that over the speakers instead, or something like that. It could be kind of a fun way to interact with a car, possibly with AI. It's one of the few cases I can see where AI might be a little bit of fun. I mean, AI is definitely helpful in a lot of ways, but in cars, we'll see. I mean, a lot of companies are very excited about it, and they're working on their ideas of how they want to integrate it into the cabin. Most of it's going to probably just be assistant kind of stuff and making things easier. But yeah, I think that's an interesting idea though. Yeah, composing songs. Yeah, who knows what else they'll be able to come up with. AI has been very hard to predict as far as the next evolutions recently. Ryan says, hey, Matt, I know it's out of production and tough to find, but I'd love a review on the Volvo V60 plug-in hybrid if possible. So I did do the Polestar engineered version. That was a few years back, but I did do that. So I have coverage of that vehicle, and I've talked about it in that review, extensively. So that's going to be the best way to hear all my thoughts on the V60. It was great. It was very cool to have for a week. I just don't love that there's no storage space up front in that thing. That's really the only thing that kind of irked me. Otherwise, it's really cool and a really fun option. So definitely check out that video. I believe, I can't remember if it's probably like 2020, 2021, something like that when I did that. But all my thoughts I said in that, it should still apply here today. And Decepticon doesn't like AI either, and totally can get that and understand. And let me see here. YH is asking if I ever reviewed a 99 to 2005 Grand Am GT. I had a 99 GT as my first car. I've never reviewed a Grand Am. I'd love to someday. There's very few, especially here in the Rust Belt. We don't have hardly any that have survived. So it's a very rare spot to see a Grand Am, but it'd be fun to do someday. They're actually Cochran, number one Cochran, the dealer I work with around here. I got excited because they had a Monte Carlo SS get traded in, and I was like, "Oh, this could be a fun one to review." And then I saw that it has 55 miles on it. So I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to drive that. I'd feel horrible putting." I mean, they've spent the past 20, almost 25 years, probably doing 2 miles a year. I mean, basically moving it around or whatever. And obviously, it's probably not very roadworthy, to be completely honest. Probably needs a lot of work before it'd even be safe to review. But for a second, I was like, oh, it'd be really great to do a Monte Carlo SS. Maybe someday I'll, again, find one that pops up that I can review. But that was a crazy. Cochran also right now has like a 34,000 mile NA, like 1990 Miata that's sitting in one of their showrooms. And that one, It's a little higher mileage. I've already done an NA Miata, so I don't know if that's necessary to redo that, especially again, that being so pristine. Cars like that, I'm very self-conscious about. I don't want to screw it up. I mean, that car lasted, all these years in this very, nice little bubble, and I don't want to be out there hammering on it and stuff. So probably won't do that one either, but they have some cool stuff. But I'm hoping to maybe find other things like that I can review here soon. And Wyatt says 17 has new emojis. That's their selling point. All right, so I see you're not an Apple fan. I mean, that is the one other thing though, is we all do get the new iOS operating system, and there's some nice improvements there that that combined with the 15 here might just be fine for me. I see Vishal says I have a 15 Plus and not interested in upgrading for a long time. They're discontinuing the Plus model with the 17, and the battery life on my phone is so good that I don't want to get rid of it. Yeah, I can understand that. That is the other thing that I'm kind of iffy about though, because the 15 Pro, the battery life is fine in most use cases for me, but I have found, so I don't know if you guys have noticed, but now that the reviews have gone 4K, I've been doing most of that 4K filming on my iPhone as far as all the B-roll goes. So the camera that's still facing me and the GoPros and stuff, that's all still done on those actual cameras, but almost all the B-roll you see now is shot on my iPhone 15 Pro in 4K. And so now that I'm using the phone a little bit more, I'm starting to drain the battery a little bit faster. And especially, it was bad when I filmed the junkyard video. The junkyard video, I show up with 100% battery life, and filming, the final video was an hour and 6 minutes, but I mean, before I edited it, I mean, it was almost 2 hours of footage that I filmed there, and I killed the battery by lunchtime. I showed up there at 10:30, and by 12:30, my battery was down to 5%. So I had to go to the car and eat my lunch in the car and charge my phone and get it back up to 55 or 60%, so that I could go back out and finish filming the rest of the junkyard video. Obviously, I could just have, if I had known it would drain that fast, I would have just brought an external battery pack, because I got a couple of those I could have just used. But having better battery life now that I'm doing more intense phone filming usage than I used to, that's one of the other big pulls, because it sounds like 17 is going to have a real nice battery improvement, especially for the Maxes. I'm not going to go for a Max because I just don't want a phone that's the size of a Subway sandwich. But I think just even the regular 17 Pro should be a nice improvement. So that is one of the other compelling things that's making me consider. But I love the titanium on the 15, and going backwards to aluminum, it sounds like, for the 17. I'm not in love with that either, but we'll see. Anyway, yeah, I'm curious to see what Apple ends up doing there. Sometimes they pleasantly surprise me, sometimes they don't. But and Raphael, thanks for stopping by. He says, I can never remember. There's the Wednesday get together. All good. And yeah, you can always, again, watch these after the fact if you want to hear what we were up to here for the past hour and 17 minutes here. And let me see. Decepticon says the 17 will probably be my next phone, but I'm not in a hurry to get it. Yeah, that makes sense. That's the other thing too, is it's maybe I should wait for a deal or something, because it's not quite as much of an urgent thing as it used to be. So Wyatt says he has an iPhone and a MacBook, but not an Apple fan, just Ford. I'm glad you're a Ford fan at least. And Vishal says the regular Pro models tend to have worse battery life overall than the other models. Yeah, I guess with the extra computing, that makes sense. So yeah, we'll see what ends up happening here. I may just stick with a 15 because I do really love it still. And Jordan says, I know you're not big on YouTube Shorts, but please cut it short of my AI music question. You'll be the first to clock it. A driver could request a song about being trapped in traffic. Chad and I have Motorola Stylus 5. Battery life lasts for days, even with Netflix, YouTube, and viewing. That's impressive. Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, I wish I had multiple day battery life. I mean, I'm so used to just putting my phone on the wireless charger at night and that I have on my bedside table that it's not an issue. So as long as it lasts me a day, I'm usually happy with that. But as far as the YouTube short, cutting out shorts from the lives, it's a hit or miss kind of thing. I seem to have more success with cutting clips from the reviews. So that's kind of what I think I'm going to stick with for the foreseeable future with the shorts. I am going to do more YouTube shorts, though. I think it's clearly something that's not going away. I kind of hoped it would be a little fad, and it clearly isn't. It's here to stay. So I've been doing more of it. I actually just posted one a few minutes ago here before the live on the Junkyard channel. I'm going to be doing almost daily shorts to bridge the gap until the next long form Junkyard walk. So I'm going to be doing a lot of shorts on that channel, especially, but even on here, like I just did that, legacy one yesterday, and I'm going to be doing I'm going to try and do those more because I think that is very important to introduce the channel to new people that maybe aren't watching long form, or it's just a really good way to get discovered on short form. So I am going to be doing that more. And I see YH has got to run to the store. Thanks for stopping by, and stay safe out there. And Michelle says my phone can go an entire weekend without needing to charge, but I'm not a super heavy user, maybe 2 to 3 hours a day of screen time. That's awesome. Yeah, being a YouTuber and social media person, I'm on my phone a lot, and so definitely a power user, I guess, in that regard. But anyway, thank you all so much for stopping by here and hanging out in the live. Hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks so much to all of you who, again, support the channel, those who've been a member for so long, and the super chats and the gifting and all that. I really appreciate it. And stay tuned for my week with the Audi S5 coming out tomorrow, and a POV of that on Friday. And I got a very cool car. Well, I have a car I'm excited about posting on Monday that I'm continuing with this theme of trying to do 2026s and beating other people to the punch on getting my hands on 2026 models before other people do, thanks to these dealer connections. And so I'm going to hopefully have the first review on YouTube of a certain 2026. I'm keeping it close to the chest for now, but I'll be doing the first review on a car that I don't think many people actually know about. It's a new trim for 2026. So stay tuned for that here on Monday as well. But have a great rest of your week. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you guys on Sunday night for the next live stream too. Take care, and thanks for hanging out.